Okay, this week we are starting a new era called the Revolutionary Era. The first theme that we're going to talk about is the French and Indian War and how this sort of unifies the colonists in a number of ways. So we're going to go ahead and get started talking about it. We need to take a step back a little bit and see what's going on in the world at this point. You have 4 or 5 different countries in Europe, including France and England, fighting each other mainly for power, for prestige, for land, for money. It's all about what you normally would fight wars over. Okay, and it's called the Seven Years' War. Okay, and it involves both of these the countries, France and England, primarily. And this war leaks over into North America. If you look at the map, the orangish yellow color there with Louisiana and Quebec, that is French territory. Okay, and then the purple is British territory. So you can see both have significant amounts of land in North America, and it's just like sort of a natural competition between these two. And then the middle area there, you can see there's like a little hash mark between the like orangish yellow and purple, just southeast of the Ohio River. That's the Ohio River Valley, and that's an area that's disputed between the two countries where they both say they have a claim to that land, and really it's just a matter of time before they go to war over it, and that's what the French and Indian War is mainly about, is that area of land. Okay, and the reason that area of land is so sought after is because of the rich farmland that it has there. It's really close to rivers and lakes and these waterways that sort of connect, the east coast to the north, to the south. It really just connects the country at this point, and really still today it's used quite a bit for trade and things like that. And then it's basically a forest at this point in history where no one's really settled it, so there's all this lumber, which is a valuable item obviously for shipbuilding and manufacturing. And then the most valuable part of the Ohio River Valley at this point is the fur trade. You have all these animals that are used to create beautiful hats like this guy's wearing and coats. And what they would do is trap these animals, take their fur, and send it to England, where it would be made into, like I said, a hat, a coat, a scarf. And it was just a really profitable industry. So both countries wanted access to this Ohio River Valley for a lot of reasons, but the fur trade was a huge part of that. Okay. Now it all starts, they have this area of land that's disputed, and it's been disputed for many years. But the Seven Years' War that's going on sort of ratchets things up. Both countries are fighting each other in Europe and other parts of the world, and the fighting in North America really starts at Fort Duquesne when the French build this fort right at the center of the Ohio River Valley. It's on the banks of the Ohio River and the Allegheny River, and it's this very valuable piece of land, mainly for trade, because you got the connection of all 3 rivers there, and it's just a way to ship things north, south, east, and get them to where they need to go. So it's again a very very valuable piece of land. When the French build their fort there, the problem with that is that Virginia actually has claim to that land. They have a specific charter to colonize that area, but so do the French. And so, in order to defend this land, the Virginian governor sends George Washington, of all people, who at this point is just a young soldier trying to make a name for himself, and he leads a militia in there and runs the French out of town. Okay, and him and his soldiers take over Fort Duquesne, plant the British flag, and now Fort Duquesne is under British control. And this sort of gets the ball rolling for the French and Indian War. Today, the reason why they're fighting over it is this city today. It's the city of Pittsburgh. You can see the 2 rivers there, the Allegheny and the Ohio River. There's another river to the west that also connects. So they call it 3 rivers that connect Pittsburgh. And so it's a very valuable piece of land still today, and that's what they're really fighting over there. So after Fort Duquesne, after the British take over, the next year, George Washington and his soldiers build another fort just south of there called Fort Necessity. Okay, and them building this fort is just like when the French build their fort. It's sort of seen as an act of aggression, and so the French come in, they defeat George Washington and his men, and run them out of town. And so you can kind of see it's this back and forth where the British attack the French, and then the French attack the British. And this, though, the battle at Fort Necessity, this is what starts the French and Indian War for real. Before it was just kind of a skirmish, but now the 7 Years' War is going on. Both sides have sort of attacked each other, and this gets the ball rolling. And they continue to go back and forth, but really England's kind of getting their butt kicked for a couple years. And so what they do is recommit themselves when William Pitt is brought in. William Pitt is the new Secretary of State of England, and a Secretary of State's really responsible for a country's like dealings around the world. Okay, so William Pitt is addressing problems that are going on in all of England's colonies at this point. Okay, and he sees this war as a war that England should be winning, but hasn't won because they haven't really committed themselves to doing so. So he does a couple of things. He sends over more troops because he knows that that's needed to replace the ones that are not doing so well. He replaces failing generals, gets rid of the ones that aren't winning battles, and sends over some of England's best generals to win these wars or battles. And then he comes in with a new strategy, attack from the north and the south. In order to accomplish that, like we said, he needs more soldiers and better generals. The plan is to attack Quebec in the north and then Fort Duquesne in the south. And by doing this sort of pinch the French into a small area of land and hopefully win the war. And they're able to take Fort Duquesne fairly easily. That's it. Fort Duquesne is right where Pittsburgh is today. When the British win, they renamed the fort Fort Pitt, and that's how we get the name Pittsburgh as a city today. In the north, though, the attack on Quebec takes a few weeks, actually. It's not an easy victory, but once the British are able to successfully take over Quebec, this is sort of seen as the downward spiral for the French. They fight for a couple more years in the French and Indian War, but really the war is over once the British take over Quebec. Okay, and that's a huge, significant victory. We need to make sure that we remember that for our quiz. And you can see here on our map sort of how things changed. Over there on the left, you see the pre-war boundaries. Once right after that first battle at Fort Duquesne. Okay, and you see on the right-hand side what America or what the British win. Okay, this is the Treaty of Paris. Sort of sums everything up. This is what ends the war, and the British get all lands east of the Mississippi River and Florida. Okay, Spain was involved for a little bit. They get Florida from Spain. And then what the French get is all lands west of the Mississippi River. Okay? So I'll say that one more time. The British got all land east of the Mississippi, and they got Florida. Okay? And the French got all lands west of the Mississippi. Okay, so that's how the Treaty of Paris went. Now, all of that, all those details we talked about is very important. We got to take a step back a little bit and see sort of what the implications are of all of this. Okay? All of the new land that England got, belonged to the British government. And although the colonists were pumped, we're British, we just defeated the French, this is awesome. Once time kind of goes on a little bit, the colonists realize, well, the British aren't giving us access to that land. In fact, they prevent the colonists from moving into that land with the Proclamation of 1763, which we'll talk about later next week. Okay, so the colonists later on feel a little bit hosed on all this because all this land that they fought for, and they committed themselves to, they don't have access to it. Okay, and then the other part of it is the Albany Plan of Union, which is in your notes, which we're not talking about here. But this whole idea of unifying the colonies is Ben Franklin's idea. And although that plan sort of failed at the French and Indian War, eventually they would join together, and that them joining together would be fighting the British. Okay, so this is really sort of another seed in planting that tree of revolution that we talked about before. That these little things that occur throughout history lead to bigger things and bigger things, and eventually leads to American independence. Okay. All right. So let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email or a tweet or whatever. Good luck on your assignment, and have a great day.